Well, hey there, guys. Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to the channel for this episode 5 of our The Last of Us Season 1 Open Spoiler Aftershow. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined by Robert Meyer Burnett. And talking about Last of Us Episode 5, in case the title of the show does not give it all away, want to just give you guys a heads up that this will be an open spoiler discussion in the sense that we will talk about all the different details in the show. So if you have not watched Episode 5, although the episode came out on a special day now 4 days ago, you probably would have watched it by now. But just wanted to give you guys that heads up. Look, let's not waste any time and just get right to it. Another remarkable episode, Rob. For this show that has somehow found a way to raise the bar almost every single time out that they've hit it with. They find ways to make us feel warm and smile. They find ways to terrify us. They give us horrible visions of a almost in a way a post-apocalyptic like future, while also showing pockets of warmth and humanity that live within it. And every time they beat us in the face emotionally, when it comes down to whether it's the end of, and I'm not even sure which one was more emotionally wrecking, the end of episode 3 or the end of episode 5, which even if you're somebody who knew the game, hit everybody like a ton of bricks. So anyway, let me go over to you on this here. So what are some of the moments? Give me your general impressions and some of the highlights for you of what was episode 5.
Well, one of the things about the show that I find constantly surprising is how, in terms of adaptation, they plus what's in the game. And I think the Kathleen character, the Melanie Lynskey character, taking time to get to know her, and you find out the whole backstory about what happened to her brother, who was the resistance leader fighting against Fedra. And you find out what happened to her, and you find out after we know what happened to Henry and why there's this animosity between them and what he did. And it's off camera. We don't see it, but we understand it. We understand the pain that Melanie Lynskey conveys to us about what happened to her. And this is all stuff that's not in the game. I mean, basically these hunters were non-player characters, and they're adversaries for us to gun down or take care of or get past to get to the next game level. But what Craig Mazin has done and Neil Druckmann has done is by necessity turn these into real people. And not only real people, but giving them backstories and giving them histories. And they have to convey them within an hour because this show is moving constantly forward. They don't stick around in locations for a long period of time. I mean, Joel and Ellie are out. So the fact that they're able to elicit this kind of emotional engagement in every episode it's masterful storytelling, and it's great writing. And they also do things like we talked about this yesterday on the show, the adaptation element. They added the fact that Sam is deaf, and that's
which was a really bright thing for them to do. It was really good.
And what it did was it created a connection between Sam and Henry that was even more than just brothers, because, it's one thing to intellectually understand what a brother is, but to actually have a narrative storytelling advice that we can see and indeed hear, that Henry has to be there to translate the moment where the John Getz character, the doctor, says to Henry that Sam is scared. You have to show him that you're not. And I mean, this kind of stuff, dude, this was not in the game, and they've added all to this, and this is great narrative storytelling. This is why this show is as special as it is, because they've added all this stuff that doesn't take away from the narrative of the game. It just adds to what already was there. And I'm astonished by how this show's going down. I can't believe how every episode I'm as emotionally engaged as I am.
For me, one of the things that really stood out, one of the reasons I love the Last of Us story in general, and I'm talking about the games, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into details about game 2, but one of the big themes that has carried through from the game to here is the theme of consequences, right? Now, for those people who've played the game, and I won't give anything away here, but Rob, you're talking about how, like, the hunters, they're, to us, the NPCs, they're just cannon fodder for us as players to go through and gun down and stuff like that. There's consequences to that. It's something that The Last of Us 2, the game, goes into a lot. And again, we won't go into that here. But that theme of consequences they bring that into the show as well, because we look at, what was Melanie's character's name again? Kathleen. With Kathleen, that brilliant little speech she gave, standing in her own bedroom, talking to her lieutenant, talking about, first of all, they humanize her. They give us a bigger picture of her and who and what she is. She was a loving sister, a loved sister. She was a good person. She was all these things. And then something at the center of her life, her brother, was taken from her. And the consequence of pain. You know, that's a common theme throughout the show and throughout the story of Last of Us, from the different medias of the game, the TV show, whatever, that pain changes people. And we even see her almost in a subconscious way lamenting her own condition. She goes, you know, my brother, he told me to forgive. I know he would want me to forgive him. He told me to, but I don't care.
Right.
What does forgiving people do? Right? The woman who was standing there on that field talking to Henry and saying, maybe your brother should be dead. Maybe that kid should be dead. Kids die. Like, that's not the person that she was. The person she was before her brother died probably never would have said that in a million years. But that's what pain does to people. Again, something that carries over into the second game a lot. But there was another point of consequences in this. We, as the main player of a game, we never think about all these individuals we gun down in a game, the NPCs, right? And Last of Us takes advantage of that. But there's another trope in a lot of storytelling, TV shows, and movie that hey, we'll do anything for the ones we love, right? And that's nobilized. And it should be. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but that's nobilized. That, hey, I'm willing to do whatever to protect my wife, to protect my father, protect my son, to protect my brother, right? And they set that up in this show where, hey, Henry did what he had to do to protect the life of his little brother. He was responsible for his brother. And listen, Kathleen made a point in saying, okay, you wanted to save your brother, and I'm paraphrasing here, but at what cost? And it cost to other people, because you saving your brother meant my brother died.
Yeah.
And other people suffered because you put your brother first. And again, I'm not saying at all that Henry was wrong to do what he needed to do to protect his brother, but I'm saying that the theme of consequences, making choices like Henry made, carried consequences to other people that got hurt or killed or lost their lives. And the way the themes of consequences being used in this show as well, I think are deep and profound, because they're not just thrilling. It's like, haha, the bloater pulled off the guy's head. It, like, after the show's done, we are left to think and ponder. And that is the sign of a powerful show, Rob.
John, I have to say, you're absolutely right about that. And either, you know, the death of Kathleen's brother might have hardened her heart to the point where we saw her execute a jail cell full of other collaborators.
Yep.
And that idea of collaborators being executed is part of her rage at what Henry has done.
Yeah.
Because that he was a collaborator, you know, and that's and Henry's actions inadvertently left the death of all those people. How many people are in that cell? 20, 25?
Yeah.
They're all dead because of what Henry did. And the thing is, what Henry did to save the life of Sam, who wouldn't have done that for their kid? You know, and
Yep.
it's in this civilization and this post-cordyceps world, I mean, the morality, the moral ambiguities of all this is really, and you know what? The way Mason's writing, he's not beating you over the head with this. You know, he's allowing the audience to follow along themselves, and the way things are revealed, these characters aren't necessarily being judged. You know, and even Henry comes out and says, no, I'm a bad guy. I did something bad. I turned over the resistance leader.
The best man I've ever known.
Best man I've ever known. And when you hear him say that, it's like, my God. That moral ambiguity is what makes this show, I think, so compelling.
By the way, David D in the live chat brings up something I wanted to mention too, which is the fact that we watched then the cycle of pain, right? Because we talked about Kathleen. This is what happens to even the best of people when extreme pain is inflicted, right? It can change you. But then there's a cycle of pain. There's a cycle of consequences. because Henry making the choice that he made led to Kathleen. Kathleen now being led by her blind rage and hate. What ultimately did that lead to? That ultimately leads to a whole nest of infested that now are running out and running towards Kansas. And so this one domino, I mean, really you go back before to Fedra and all that kind of stuff, but this one domino that Henry knocked off by allowing other people to die so he could save his brother led to this, and now maybe they'll get around to it in the show, but maybe all of Kansas now dies and falls because of this cycle of pain.
By the way, I have to say, the director of photography tweeted out where that conflict took place, where all the infected came up out of the ground. They built all that. That was built on a flat plain in Canada, and they built that entire neighborhood. And brilliant. I mean, brilliant art direction, brilliant. Yeah, there you go. Amazing. Just amazing.
Look at those lights. It's like Rihanna platforms hanging up in the sky.
I mean, incredible.
So yeah, that was all great. Let's talk to, there's some specific scenes that I just loved about this, that I think Joel, we're seeing the evolution of Joel a bit, because now that he has come into contact with Ellie, we're not just seeing his responses to Ellie change. We're seeing, I think, his now interactions and his relationship with Ellie are changing him, because now he busts into that quote unquote tower where the sharpshooter was killing everybody. And like Joel of episode 1, Joel of episode 2 is kicking the door, bang. Instead, he kicks in the door. He goes, look, we just want to get out of here. And he sees the old man going for the gun. He's like, please don't. Please don't. So they are very, and like you said, Mason and Druckmann are not hitting you over the head with it. Like they could have, a lesser show would have had Joel busting in that room going, listen, old man, five days ago, I would have just shot you right here where you stand, but blah, 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 blah.
Right.
No. They don't do that. They let us as the audience figure it out. But with the one word, please don't do that. He doesn't want to kill people anymore.
And you know what? They cut away and you hear the gunshot in the distance.
Yes.
They don't, it's not gratuitous. I mean, we know what's happening, but it's not gratuitous. Like Walking Dead probably would have showed him shoot the guy in the head. And you don't need to do that, because the important thing in that scene is not that Joel takes somebody out. The important thing is that Joel gave that man a choice, and he chose not to. And
that's a result of the evolution we're seeing. We're seeing episode 1 showed us what Joel lost of himself by losing his daughter. And I feel like what we're starting to see is now with Ellie in his life, he's starting to reclaim parts of his humanity, if you will, now that Ellie's back. And they're doing it in such a subtle, beautiful, organic kind of way. I mean, my God, the brilliance of the show just keeps getting, and then when it comes time for the action, because you know, some people, particularly the players of the game, who are used to The Last of Us being 90% of running around shooting people, which is understandable. You know, the one criticism of, hey, not a lot of infected or zombie action going on here. What's going on? Well, they addressed that, because when that truck started falling into the ground, like we all knew what was coming, we instantly thought back to they ran them all down into the tunnels. And we don't know where they are now. It's like, well, they're still down there. And that the truck goes under and they come flooding out. Like the visual of that, of all these infected just full on Olympic kind of sprinting, flooding and pouring out of that hole in the ground. And then of course this, and then the bloater comes out. And man, when he grabs the actor who plays Tommy in the game, I can't remember the character's name now, but when he grabs him and just unceremoniously pops his head off, done. It's like, we're going to see more of that. That's not the last bloater we're going to see in this. So that to me was a huge highlight. And then Kathleen just a very unceremoniously killed. You know, it's funny. I think there's a bit of irony in the fact that she was just talking about, hey, kids die, children die. And even though Henry was just pleading with her, just let the kids go. And she goes, no, we're going to kill the kids too. What takes her out? A child clicker takes her out. So I think there was some poetry in that.
No, absolutely. And look, again, this show, and I have to say, I think my favorite and the most chilling moment of the show was when poor Sam reveals he was actually bitten in that skirmish and asks her very matter-of-factly, because these kids have lived they've known nothing but a cordyceps world. and says, will I still be me on the inside?
Yeah, when somebody turns, you think it's still them on the inside. And like Sam wasn't stupid. He knew what was happening.
He knew.
He knew he was bit, and he knew what that meant.
And that scene was so when Henry had to shoot Sam out of necessity. He couldn't believe what he did, and the way that actor played it. He couldn't. Like I told you yesterday, I was sitting there. I was so tense because he wouldn't put the gun down, and he had it pointed at Joel, and I'm like, because who knows? They might do something different. Joel might get shot. And I was like, in that moment, all my foreknowledge of the game went away. I was so like on the edge of my seat in that scene. It was so beautifully acted. It was so tense. And you're dealing with the death of a kid, and that's going to happen. And then Henry takes himself out, and that it was like I could hear a pin drop in my house.
I've heard some people in that scene, when he's revealing to Ellie that he's been bitten and all that kind of stuff. I've heard some people criticize, like, come on, nobody really thinks if you just rub your own blood on something, that'll fix it. Ellie's a kid.
Right.
Like in Ellie's mind, in that sense, like she knows there's something special about her. In her head, it makes perfect sense. Just get some of my blood and rub it on your problem, and that'll probably fix you. So, like, I get it. Yes. A medically trained doctor in the room would have gone, well, that's not how this works. But I mean, she is a kid. To her, in her mind, this makes perfect sense. I'm going to do this.
Plus, she hasn't been infected that long. No one's ever done any real tests. She was chained up on the wall, when we first met her, and it was like, maybe somebody will find out something. She doesn't know. She's giving it's a Hail Mary pass. Like, I don't know if this is going to work. Maybe it will. That was probably the first time she ever even thought about doing that anyway. And she tried. It was a kid. And I think that was, like you said, she was a kid trying to, like, I don't know if this is going to work, but it's the one thing I can try. Why not?
Before we move on to, I want to go back to something you were talking about earlier, which was the other collaborators that were being held in the cell, right? And Kathleen goes down. Like, some of you turned in your neighbors for a little extra food. Well, I mean, saying just a little extra food sounds really trite, but maybe for some people that was the difference between life and death.
And for their kids.
And for the kids, for medicines, for this, for that. Again, talking about consequences, like you were acting on your behalf no matter who else it hurt. But we as the audience, we identify with that. Like, because you pointed out, who among us wouldn't, do something drastic to take care of the people we love or whatever, but we sometimes forget that starts a chain of dominoes to fall that are going to hurt other people, maybe a lot worse than we are. Oh my God, just the complexity and the depth and the levels and the layers that Druckmann and Mason do at this show are absolutely incredible. And then finally, we got to talk about the performances.
Dude.
Like, all of this is great, but if the performances don't sell us on it, if Henry and Sam and the actors portraying him don't make us believe it, because I said in an earlier episode, Rob, that they're creating this world and this is all great, but if Pedro Pascal and
Bella
Ramsey don't sell us and convince us and make us believe in the bond that they're forming and in the chemistry that they have, then a lot of this great writing is going to go to waste. It becomes spilt milk on the floor. But across the board, like Kathleen, like her, oh my God, like I said before, just give Nick Offerman the Oscar for Best Guest Appearance now. The woman playing Kathleen, who was also awesome in Yellow Jackets, like, her performance was staggering to me. And then, of course, just Pedro and Bella, and just like across the board, it's just insane. If you had to pick one performance in episode 5 that you said for you was the MVP performance of that one, and that's a tough one to pick because it's filled with great ones, which one would you go with?
I'm going to go with Sam because he's not a talented actor. I mean, he's not an experienced actor. I thought he was a very talented actor, and what he conveyed with his face. And on the after show, they showed the guy, the director of ASL, American Sign Language, worked with him. And I mean, I just was astonished because sometimes kid performances, I mean, look at Black Adam, they don't work. They don't work as well as you want. And Sam had to be as soulful as you could. And without being able to speak, even to be able to convey what he can convey with his face. I mean, the other actors are experienced. I mean, we know that Bella Ramsey, Leanna Mormont, her character, or not Leanna, but the Leanna was in the moon dome, whatever.
Lady Mormont.
Lady Mormont. Yeah, we know she's good. We know Pedro Pascal's a good actor. But to see a young boy starting out in his career be able to convey that depth of feeling is impressive.
I would have said Bella Ramsey was my MVP of the episode for two things. One, her interaction with Sam.
So great.
Like was so perfect, that playful, like she was herself just looking as a kid, just looking for an excuse and a way to have fun. The way she portrayed that. And then at the end, after Sam dies, and they're burying them, and just the way she moves. Now, I want to say Bella Ramsey was the MVP, but I'm going to have to go with Lamar playing Henry. That moment that he shoots Sam. And
you're right.
But even the moment before he shoots Sam, right? Like he is absolutely, this moment was some of the craziest 3 seconds of acting, because he is torn between, there is an infected in here attacking this kid, but you want to harm my brother. And he's like, he's so conflicted in that moment, and he portrays that conflict, that internal conflict so perfectly. And then he shoots him and he's like, well, what have I done? And oh my God, it was so great. So I'm going to say, for me, the MVP, you're going to go with Sam. Totally great pick. I'm going to go with Henry. Just amazing. And the fact that Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey knew that in this was an episode that those were the performances that needed to shine, and they needed to take on the role of supporting characters in a way.
Yeah.
And that made it all work. So good. Oh, guys, this show is so damn good. Anyway, listen, we are now going to spend the rest of our show doing the important work of taking your live comments and questions about what your thoughts, theories, and opinions of The Last of Us Episode 5, things you're looking forward to moving down the road. Now, before we get to those things, though, we want to take just a minute here and thank the sponsors of this episode, our friends at BetterHelp and Manscaped. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, BetterHelp. When you're at your best, you can do great things, but sometimes life gets you bogged down, and you may feel overwhelmed or like you're not showing up in the way that you know you can. Working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you, because when you're feeling at your best, the challenges that life throws at you don't disappear, but you're more prepared to take on those challenges. Guys, you know I've been saying for a long time that we need to start prioritizing our mental health as much as we do our physical health. When we dedicate ourselves to going to the gym and looking after ourselves, we see that as a great step forward for us physically. Well, it's time for us to start taking care of ourselves mentally as well. So if you're feeling it's time to give therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So if you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/Campea today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Campea. Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Breaking news, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, they are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the code Campea for 20% off and free shipping. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. So no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. You also get the beard shampoo and conditioner. Because guys, you gotta remember that all of your hair is different. Your beard hair is more coarse and easier to damage than the hair on your head. Next, the kit has Manscaped's beard oil. The oil relieves dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath. You then cap it off with the Beard Balm that shapes, styles, moisturizes, and tames for a sculpted look. The Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 special gifts: a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code Campea at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code Campea. Manscaped Beard Hedger, 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths. And thank you to our friends at BetterHelp and Manscaped for sponsoring this episode of our Last of Us Aftershow. Okay, guys, with that down, we're going to get on now to your thoughts, theories, opinions, and questions about the episode. So, Rob, what do we got up here first?
What do we got, John? We got, I think we got Jesse Has a Turtle. 100% unrelated to the show. But hear me out. Playing chat, but with traditional games instead like Bloody Knuckles or Spin the Bottle.
Thank you for the suggestion, but we are here to talk about The Last of Us instead. And listen, I would love to do a tabletop role-playing game like a Star Wars RPG or a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. That would be pretty fun. But all right, what's next?
I'd pay money to see us play Spin the Bottle. Richard says, when Joel offers Henry to come to Wyoming, you can see the sense of optimism in his face.
Yeah. I mean, the way they've painted the world, it really heightens it when there are moments of hope. I mean, that's what made episode 3 so remarkable, right? Like episode 3 was all based on what love can do in the world. Episode 5 is a great example of what hatred can do in the world. And it's showing us both. And so it gives us, even in that episode, like that moment of hope, because whose heart didn't smile when Joel says to Henry, maybe you can come with us. And you see, like, for the first time in maybe a long time for Henry, an idea of hope that maybe there's a better future ahead. And that was just taken away.
Yes.
Yep, just gone. All right, what's next?
Cody Hunt says, life felt as precious as ever in this episode.
Yep.
It makes you want to hug the people in your life and think about what you're willing to do to protect them.
Well, Cody, that's the thing, right? It's like one of the X factor, if you will. The X factor, because we can talk about the great direction, beautiful writing, wonderful performances, set design. We can talk about all that stuff. For me, the X factor of this show, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, is the fact that, when a great episode of The Mandalorian is done, I'm like, whoo, that was fun. Big smile on my face and, move on. When The Last of Us, when the credits roll and the episode ends, I find it living in my head for at least a few hours, if not for a few days, thinking about the issues brought up, the context and the scenarios and the situations and the philosophies and all that kind of stuff and the deeper meaning. It just has a way of lingering with you. You know what I mean? To me, that's that X factor. If you had to define for you what maybe an X factor of this show would be, what would you say it might be?
To me, what I feel is the melancholy of what's been lost about this. Like, you really feel that civilization, unlike, say, when you're watching something like The Walking Dead, it's very combative. You're expecting a battle with the forces of evil all the time. With this, it's like the humans we've already lost. In Walking Dead, there's the idea that maybe civilization could come back. Not here. For whatever reason, there's this melancholy. We're at the end of the road. That's hence the title, The Last of Us. And I feel that every episode, even though they end it usually in broad daylight with somebody walking off, into the distance like this episode did, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go. There's no civilization that's being built up anywhere else. The world's done. And I love that. I don't know what that says about me, but
all right, let's keep going. What's next?
Cody Hunt says, Ellie felt like such a big sister in this episode.
Yeah.
She really felt like a kid again. I loved seeing her and Sam's friendship develop throughout. Totally agree.
Yeah, because we often forget, because we've known Ellie for, God, when did the game come out?
2013?
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was going to say 16, but yeah, probably right, 2013. We've known Ellie for 10 years.
Yeah.
In our headcanon, she's like 24 years old. Right? But we forget she's a kid.
A kid, and has never known a world other than the one she's grown up in.
Exactly, and probably has had very few moments where she could just be a kid. And that's why I love that scene when they go down underground and they find the daycare, and like her and Sam just get to be kids.
Yeah.
And because by doing that, it also heightens the tragedy of the loss of innocence.
Yes.
Like when she realizes Sam is bitten and Sam turns and they have to shoot Sam and all that kind of stuff. Without showing us the innocence, we don't feel the loss of the innocence nearly as much. And they understand that. It's like they set it up and then beat us over the head emotionally. But it's been brilliant that way. All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, oh, wait, hang on. Cody Hunt says, do you think Joel knows that Ellie tried to heal Sam?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we know is if you watch the next time on The Last of Us, we see that was clearly communicated to him, right? That, she goes, I tried to save him. So that she reveals it to him in the next episode. And that's when, and then he says, I'm pretty sure it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Like, don't think your blood isn't the fix for this. It's just that what you did, probably it's a lot more complicated. So I don't think he knows yet, as in the end of episode 5, but clearly he will be made aware of it come the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, I didn't care about Kathleen in episode 4, but in episode 5, she was terrifying, especially in the opening scene.
It's amazing, Rob, what a difference our impression of a villain is once we understand their motivations, right? Like seeing a random bad guy, hey, we're here to steal your bounty. We see a million of those villains all the time, right? But once the show starts to humanize them, once we start to understand them and understand what kind of brought them to that place, and we start to get what their motivations is. One of the big reasons I think Thanos became such a compelling villain in the MCU is not just that he's big and powerful and has the gauntlet. It's like, the universe is screwed. I mean, I have to bring balance to the universe. And especially in Infinity War, when we get to understand that Thanos sees his own failure led to the destruction of his world. That his world died because he wasn't able to bring balance to the universe, right? Once that bigger picture starts to get painted, our impression of the villain becomes far more intense. And I think that one scene in the bedroom, again, I think this is going to be a pivotal scene for the whole series, really, even though we're never going to see Kathleen again. But that scene in the bedroom of getting the background and really understand, okay, yeah, we knew she lost her brother, but now we understand what her brother meant. And we actually get to feel it, right? It makes her, like, you understand, oh, this person's been really wronged and is in ridiculous pain. There ain't nothing she won't do. Right. And that makes them all the more scary, I think.
Totally agree.
It's such good writing. All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, I could have watched a whole hour of Henry and Joel talking. That's what's so compelling about this show. That's how well written it is.
You're right. The dialogue, the straight up dialogue. I remember, one of my favorite movie scenes of the past, it's more than 10 years old now, I think, of the past like decade plus. There's a scene in The King's Speech with Colin Firth and Casanova Frankenstein, Jeffrey Rush. Jeffrey Rush and him are sitting down in a room. Two of them, they're sitting around a small table, and both of them are sitting in a chair on either side, and they just talk. And I remember that scene to me is like one of my favorite scenes in the last whatever. And there's no action, there's no dynamic, there's no yelling and screaming. It's just conversation. It's dialogue. And you're right there. That's the thing about this show. It can move us in a lot of different ways, but the dialogue is also so compelling that every time characters are talking, it's deep and meaningful. And whether it's carrying emotional weight or actual tactical information for the show itself, it's like you never take your eyes off the screen.
No. And for this show, that's amazing. It's a video game adaptation.
Yeah. You had to keep reminding yourself of that.
It's incredible.
All right, what's next?
Jake says, the way Joel simply says Ellie and inches towards her to comfort her after Sam's death shows just how close they've become with one simple word of dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? We were talking about the evolution of Joel too. I think in that moment, he realizes the importance of that too. And listen, to me too, we see, I think, the real height of Ellie's pain when she's just like, we got to get going. Let's go. She's trying to just wall it off. You're right. And to me, that was so heartbreaking. I mean, first of all, when the camera pans down to the little etchy sketchy thing that was Sam's that's on the ground, and the camera cuts back to it, and they see that Ellie just wrote on it, "I'm sorry." Oh, come on. Who among you didn't break? Who among us did not, like, emotionally just have a little piece of our heart break? And not for Sam. Our hearts already broke a couple of minutes earlier for Sam. Now our heart's breaking for Ellie. And oh God, they hit. It's like a good UFC fighter. They don't hit you with one punch and back off. It's like left and then right. It's one, then two, then three. And it's like, oh my God, they're just beating us down emotionally. It's so good. All right, what's next?
So good. Mike's Movie Madness says, I'm amazed by the writing of this show. There was so much subtext in Kathleen and Perry's conversation. When Kathleen said she knew her brother would want her to forgive Henry, but she didn't care. You could tell from Perry that that's why they chose her as their leader. While even though he admired his philosophies, he couldn't carry out the revolution Kathleen did, and that's why he follows her.
The line that he says in that, when he says to her, your brother was the greatest man we've known, but you got us here.
Yeah.
You got us here. And there's something about that. It maybe that experience steeled her to be the one to do the things that in their minds needed to be done. But again, even the situation of the hunters in Kansas City is also a great example of pain and consequences, right? Because Fedra, like, you abuse people for so long, that's going to create pain, and pain changes people, and that change brings consequences. The consequences, they overthrow them, kill all of them. Like that one scene of the flashback to the liberation of Kansas, and they're like literally shooting people laying on the ground and just being the most brutal, horrific, awful things. But that's what pain did. These are people who lived under that kind of pain for over a decade, close to 2.
Oh man.
And it's just, and so that experience steeled her, and that led to all them getting killed and anybody who collaborated with them and all that. Oh, and then the cycle continues. Oh,
so good.
Oh, so well done. All right, what's next?
Justice Sub 32 says, no, the bloater killed Tommy.
Yeah, of course. Of course, the actor we've talked about this before, is the guy who did the voice acting and I think the motion capture of Joel's brother Tommy in the video game. So cool to see him in there. But yeah, that was like, boom. Just like no two ways about it. No speculating. I wonder if he lived for the next episode. Maybe he'll come. Nope. Just pops his head right off. Oh, what a visual! What a visual that was. All right, what's next?
Bert says, kids die every day. Even though a true statement, Kathleen's delivery of that line was both callous and chilling. Poetic. She gets taken out by a kid.
Oh, I was just saying that.
Yeah.
Right? But no, you're 100% right. I mean, we see the extent of which her humanity was, by the way, Kathleen isn't somebody who turned evil. Her humanity was stolen from her, right? We can't forget that. To fully understand Kathleen, you have to understand that, number one, she was a victim, right? Her humanity was stolen from her by the person who was most important in her life, wrongly and horribly taken from her. And it stripped away her humanity after that. And to the point that you see an individual who's standing there, whatever, I don't give an F. Kids die. It's like, just let the kids go.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to do that. No, they're going to die too. Like her humanity was gone. And all that was left, you see it in that speech of hers. People say forgive, but what does that accomplish? How do I get any justice out of that? What do I get out of it? Nothing. And that's all she had left. All she had left was an empty, hollow shell that had a chasm that was filled with nothing but her remaining pain and rage. And God, that makes that compelling. Like, oh, anyway. All right, what's next?
Sadhu says the direction was incredible. The choice to focus on Ellie's reaction instead of cutting to black after the suicide made it more painful. I love this show.
Because again, we often talk about what lesser storytellers would have done.
Yeah.
You could have very easily shown us the tragedy of what happens to Sam and then cut away, right? And that would have been perfectly normal, perfectly acceptable as storytellers to do. By lingering for just a bit, we are not just now left with the tragedy of what happened to Sam. It becomes the next chapter in the tragedy that's happening to Joel and Ellie. This is yet the next level. They were getting attached. They got attached to this kid and to Henry. They found kindred spirits. They found the yings to their yang, if you will, right? And so, yes, first and foremost, it was a tragedy of Sam and Henry, but it just became the next chapter of tragedy in the story of Joel and Ellie too. And again, the idea of consequences, that these actions are not self-contained and isolated.
Yeah.
There is a ripple effect that happens as a result that affects the people around it, and we see it here. All right, what's next?
Justice Sub 32 says, I like that they changed Henry's reaction of shooting Sam. You could see the emotions and thoughts that they were going through, that were going through his head after what he did.
Again, in a very short period of time, we're talking seconds. The actor needs to convey all this stuff that's going on in the character, right? And if you don't make us believe it, it falls flat. He made us believe it.
100%. And like I said, that scene was so tense for me. Watching it, I'm just like, oh my God. Because his performance, the way he conveyed, that's a hard place to get to when you're acting. That enclosed room, he was brilliant.
Yeah, so good.
What a performance.
All right, what's next?
Lynn sends in a super chat and says, when Joel was continuously shooting at the lookout to protect Ellie as she runs around the infected, I loved it. My favorite action scene of the series so far.
Yeah. First of all, it juxtaposes against, okay, whoever's up in that tower is a piss poor shot. That's it.
Right.
Meanwhile, he gets up there and has the rifle in his hand, and he's like, nope, he's a surgeon with a scalpel, and he's taken, and this is why it's important that they laid the groundwork early in the show. This is a military vet. He's not just some guy who just happens to be really good with a gun, right? This is everything they do. They have laid foundation groundwork for, and then payoff for. 100%. And that has been great. So yeah, I love that part. That was too. Great. All right, what's next?
But that part was also still tense.
Yes, it was.
Just tense.
Just
Chuck
a sub.
New.
Just a sub. Just a sub.
Is that you? Scooch. Okay. Seeing Joel asking Henry to give him the gun, I wouldn't be surprised if Joel had similar thoughts when losing Sarah.
Listen, if you were somebody who didn't know the game or anything at that, and suddenly this Sarah character, who the first 20 minutes tend to convince you that this is the main character of this show, dies, you absolutely would be forgiven if you thought, well, the dad's going to take his own life. And because it's dark. And so you're absolutely right. He was somebody who could totally understand. Now, he's not the one who shot his own daughter, but he's the one who failed to protect her.
Yeah.
And Henry, listen.
And they were together.
Yeah.
And still the circumstances made it so even right then and there, there's nothing he could have done.
No, and listen, Henry, make no mistake, Henry didn't kill Sam. Sam was gone by that point.
Right.
Right? And I'm sure Joel wishes he wanted to get that gun from Henry and probably try to rationalize that with him. But in that moment, there's no rationalizing, right? It's just, so good.
And so we actually saw that was the thing too, that they let Sam turn in that whole sequence because he had asked before, is there anything left in me? And there isn't.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad that they gave us that so it lessened the blow of his death. Because if there was a shred that this could be reversed, it would be, but there isn't. So.
Nope. All right, what's next?
Ryan Lohner says, or is Chuck, no, Chuck New 52, Ant-Man now down to 55, phase 5 off to a slow start.
Yeah, it is, but we're here right now to talk about Last of Us, but yes, it is. All right, what's next?
Ryan Lohner says, Melanie Linsky has always been great at seemingly normal people with a deep darkness in them, going all the way back to Heavenly Creatures.
Oh, I forgot about Heavenly Creatures. Yeah.
She's so good. Deborah. She's so good in that movie.
And then again in Yellow Jackets. Like, there's a scene in Yellow Jackets that made my jaw drop. Like, she comes across as this, you're right, she is the perfect actress to get to play the normal lady in the neighborhood, right? But I don't know if you watch Yellow Jackets or not. I can't remember. Okay.
I love it.
That scene with the rabbit.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. That was the scene for me.
Oh, man.
When you see all the stuff going on in the head, right?
Yeah.
And that was the scene for me. It's like, this lady's a special actress.
Yes.
Like, she's really good. And so you're 100% right. 100% right about that. All right, what's next?
Mm-hmm. Ryan Lohner says, Ellie, stop saying you'll stay awake. You're not good at it.
Oh, yeah. But no, he just wanted her to stay awake with him. Right? Like, until he falls asleep. Sure, he fell asleep, but you know what? The one scene, there's a scene in there's a shot in there that's very much a cliche trope. Like, as soon as you see a character sitting with their back to the main character, just looking out, something's very, very wrong, right? So we all knew that as Ellie was approaching him there, that it's going to discover. But you know what? It took away none of its effectiveness. Like, even though we knew 100% that she was going to walk, whether you played the game or not, when she walked up to, Sam was sitting there up on the bed with his back to her. As soon as she walked up to him, we knew. And it still carried that.
That was great.
Oh, so good. All right, what's next?
David D says, don't blame Kathleen for refusing to forgive. Frozen was never made in her universe. And she never learned to let it go.
Let it go. And by the way, like, we got to remember too, in that world, we got a very close personal firsthand account about what happened to her brother because she told the story.
Yeah.
We can only speculate about the hundreds or thousands of those similar stories she probably saw. And like living under that for over a decade, I can't even imagine, man.
Well, and for her also, any collaborator, she might have gone easy, but now all collaborators killed her brother.
Exactly. Every single, when she looked in the faces of every single one of those people in that prison cell,
They're
that
all
was on the
Henry.
floor, all she saw was that person killed my brother. That person killed my, that's all she saw. Right or wrong, that's all she saw.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Which is great. I mean, great from a narrative
Yes,
point of
from
view.
a narrative point of view.
Ren Davis says, this was a case of efficient and economic storytelling. Not a single second was wasted to get you to care about Henry and Sam in a single episode. It's true. I mean, every single moment you love them more and more. That's why the narrative, the writing on this show, there wasn't one moment wasted. Not one. I mean, everything that happened, like, you know what even freaked me out? When they went underground and they're in the school. You know how I said that there's that melancholy and that creeped me out, man. You know, like, where did those people go? You know, those people, they had this safe place to teach children. They're not there anymore.
I like the word they use, efficiency.
Yeah.
Because I'm finding that's been the entire series.
Yes.
Every scene is used to convey something. Even just going down into the preschool underground, right? That was instant world building. Just seeing the room,
yes,
to us was world building. Then they compound that by using that scene to deepen the bonds between Ellie and Sam. They then use that scene to give us backstory on Henry. Every single scene, every single shot, every single exchange seems to be not just accomplishing something, but accomplishing 2, 3, or 4 different things all at once every time. And so by the time we get to the end of an episode, that very well could have been 3 episodes of another show.
Yes.
Right? Because of how much they accomplished in it. And you know what? That is very much a hallmark of Chernobyl. Going back to Mason's other work, right? Like every single episode how many episodes was Chernobyl?
I want to say 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 6.
6, 7,
5,
something like
6,
that.
maybe.
Could have easily been a 15 episode thing because of the efficiency in which they used every scene to accomplish multiple tasks as storytellers. And they brought that over to The Last of Us.
It might have been 7.
It was 5. I just checked.
Oh, it's 5. Well,
Okay,
there you go.
There you go. All right, what's next?
Hamid says, or is Ren Davis the next?
Hamid.
No, Hamid. Taking into account less than great reviews for Ant-Man 3, is the movie in danger of major?
Sorry,
box
we're gonna
office
have to
flopping?
move on, guys. We're here to talk about Last of Us today. Appreciate that, but we make very clear all the time for the after shows, we're here to talk about the after show. All right, what's next?
Addison says, "I'm sorry, that moment left me speechless."
Again, we had just been punched in the gut with the death of Sam and Henry, right? Just brutally punched in the gut. And then they followed it up with a surprise uppercut emotionally with the camera hard cuts to that thing on the ground. And we just see the words, "I'm sorry."
And you know what's so great about that is it speaks to, I mean, she this was what her whole state of mind is now. And that was when she walked up there and then you see them walking off. I mean, the what she feels, the failure that she feels. I mean, they didn't have to leave us with that, but they did.
Yeah.
And that was powerful, man.
All right, what's next?
Michael Smith says, favorite episode so far. The game was epic storytelling, but this show's on another level. I know what's going to happen, and I'm still surprised.
You know, people get upset with me when I mention that. How do I put this? The storytelling in games is not on the same level as storytelling in TV shows and movies.
No.
And this is a great example, because I believe The Last of Us is the greatest storytelling ever in video games, right? But this show is a great example of why. You're spending 90% of your time in the games, and this is totally appropriate because that's what games are for.
Right.
Games are for gameplay.
Right.
You spend 90% of your time in the game, running around, shooting, finding, discovering, stealing, whatever you need to do in the game, right? This is real storytelling now, right? It's now taking all that. And so when I remember a lot of people said to me at first, like, you can't possibly do The Last of Us in one season. You can, actually, because if you put it in the hands of the right storytellers who know how to, accentuate all the stuff and tell it in the right way and give it a proper flow and pace. That's why for just storytelling, this medium will always be better than video games.
Yes.
And games will always be far better at just to sit down, have fun, engagement for whatever hours. They each do different things. And that's why it's so rare that you can find a property, an IP, a story, whatever you want to call it, that can so beautifully do both mediums, make such an excellent game,
really
and
hard.
make such an excellent show. It's very special. Very, very special. All right, what's next?
Paul J. Jepson says, I'm pretty sure that Joel's hate and violence is bubbling underneath, especially when someone he loves is in danger, foreshadowing for the final episodes.
Well, I mean, look, it's not subtle. Like, you just go back to, I think was it the end of episode 1 or episode 2 when he beats the dude to death? I think it was episode 2, right? End of episode 2?
End of episode 1, I think.
Oh, is it the end of episode 1?
When they
Okay.
first are leaving the city.
I'm getting the episodes already mixed up. But, like, yeah, listen, they do a great job in because episode 1 ends with us just seeing that Joel is now living there in that city, right? So many years have passed, and he's taking the little boy's body and drops it.
Oh,
in the
that's right.
burner,
You're right. So it is episode
So then we get in episode 2, and they had laid the groundwork that the quote-unquote mob boss is terrified of Joel. Like, everybody knows Joel, right? You don't mess with Joel, and then Joel will literally beat a guy to death with his fists.
But no, because that was the extended episode. Episode 1 is that it's episodes 1 and 2 put together. It's the longer episode, so it didn't end.
Oh,
with him.
I see what you're saying. Yes, that's right, because they combined the first episode. There we go.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, so it was the first night of broadcasting, but it was the 2 episodes put together.
Because that's when the first episode was supposed to end. He dumps
when he dumps the body in the burner. Right. But oh my God, they've done that so well. And yeah, I mean, and then they remind us again with him in the tower, just with extreme efficiency, taking people out one shot at a time. It was pretty impressive. It was pretty good.
Really good.
All right, what's next?
Daniel Vakura says, it was Mason's idea to make Sam deaf, and he talked about it, the audition process on the podcast. They weren't getting many, so he asked on Twitter. He expected 80 and only received 5 audition tapes.
I didn't hear that part. Really?
Yeah, I thought because they do the long audio podcast afterwards.
Right. Oh yeah, and I didn't
know
hear
that
right.
only 5 people sent in audition tapes.
Well, man, they're lucky. They got the right one. They got the right one. It doesn't matter how many, as long as you get the right one. And I think we can all agree they ended up landing on the right one. So they got lucky. That's pretty good.
That's amazing. I gotta hear that. I didn't listen to this.
All right, what's next?
Walter White Walker says, I love hate. This was the antithesis of episode 3.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, right? That in episode 3, we get to see in this world, here's what love can do in episode 3. Love can create meaning and a place of hope and a place of joy and like all that kind of stuff. That's what love can do in this world. Now we jump to episode 5. Here's what pain does to the world. Just a reminder. And it kind of reinforces what Joel has been saying in the show. The scariest thing out there ain't the infected.
Right.
It's people. Because we see with episode 3 what love can do, but it's what pain does to people that makes them scary. And yeah, you're right. It's a great juxtaposition. All right, what's next?
Louis Mazer says, why did the Kansas City Army block the highway off?
My guess is it's to, listen, their whole industry, that city's industry for survival was to get travelers,
Piracy, passersby.
to go through the city where they can be ambushed, murdered and had their resources taken. That was their industry. I mean, and we find out that it's an industry that even Joel was in one time. Joel and Tommy, they were in that industry too for a little while. It's like people doing what people need to do to survive, which we find out has consequences. But yeah, so that's why they blocked it off. All right, what's next?
Eric Miller says, seeing how the fans react to Kathleen and her outlook on the world makes me very curious as to how they'll view Joel when all is said and done.
Well, we don't want to jump ahead for people who haven't played the game. But, you know, The Last of Us, what I love about the ending of Last of Us, and we won't talk about what the circumstance is in particular, I love it when stories force us to debate, even in our own heads, the actions of our protagonist. It's like, did they do the right thing? Did they do the wrong thing? I often compare what Joel needs to do later in the season to Clint Eastwood in $1 Million Baby, right? The character Clint Eastwood plays at the end of $1 Million Baby has to make a choice. And nothing says he made the right choice or the wrong choice. He just made a choice.
Yeah.
And the choice that Joel needs to make later in the season, we will be coming back to revisit discussions about things Kathleen said to Henry. I mean, again, it's all tying together. There's a lot of foreshadowing. It's going to be very emotionally powerful, and it's going to be something that will make us sit down and think about it until season 2 comes out, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Eldon Goblin says, sequel tried to bring consequences to killing NPCs. They have names, feelings, friends, etc.
Yeah.
If you kill one, others will react. When you play as the other girl, you actually see these NPCs and go, oh, I killed those nice people.
That's one of the things I love about the second game. Why I think the story of the second game even surpasses the story of the first game is that besides the fact of that big theme of here's what pain does to people, the whole idea of consequences. Like we are, every time there's some guard standing in front of a door that you sneak up behind and just stab in the neck with a knife, and then they're gone, they're out of our thought, out of sight, out of mind. We don't think about that NPC ever again. That was the story of Last of Us reminds us, somebody with a mother and a father and friends and a life and dreams and goals. And to go back to Clint Eastwood again, it's a hell of a thing killing a man. You take away everything he's got and everything he's ever going to have.
Yep.
And there will be consequences for that, because there are going to be people, every little NPC you knock off has people that are going to be real upset that happened. And that's coming. We'll talk about that more when we get closer to it. All right, what's next?
Daniel Vakura says, the sniper committing suicide by cop, where Mason said it was an 80-year-old man who probably lived a good life for the first 60 years until the last 20 made it more sad. That was a good change.
I'm not quite sure what he's
Well, he's
referencing.
talking about the sniper, that the sniper was an 80-year-old
Yeah,
guy.
what was his name? Anthony? Because Kathleen says his name over the radio once, like, Anthony, just keep him.
You know,
moving.
and that's interesting that Mason said that, because, you know, death by cop, wanting the cops to kill you because you're too afraid to take your own life or whatever. And yeah, imagine the 20 years, that poor old guy, and the fact that he's just sitting there as a lookout in this lonely, broken down, decrepit house.
Probably finding meaning.
Yeah,
in it.
I mean, look,
Like
something.
Again, that whole scene was sad. That like just please don't do it. And we just want to move on, man. Let's just give me your gun. Let us move on out of here. Oh, it's just tragic after tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. All right, what's next?
Matt Sanders says, man, Bella's scream at the end when Henry took himself out, that sent chills down my spine.
It was so quick too. Like, because we've sat on that, thought about it, replayed that scene in our heads a lot. We're going to talk about it for days to come. That scene's going to live with us for a long time. But you got to remember, from Joel and Sam's perspective, that whole exchange took like 6 seconds, right? And think about this. Henry, 6 seconds ago, was like, man, the world looks different now. We're going to go with you to Wyoming. There's actually hope. We're escaping the city. I'm going to be able to get my brother to this. Like, he is feeling better than he has felt in a long time. 1 second passes, and his zombified, infected little brother is trying to kill Ellie. And all of a sudden, I got to protect my brother. No, I'm going to shoot you. No, wait, I got to protect. And all of a sudden, the world changed. 6 seconds ago, hopeful, the world looks bright again. 6 seconds later, my little brother's dead. The world, life is meaningless now. I mean, I can't even imagine it. Like, the way they did that was just so good. All right, what's next?
Matt Sanders. Oh, I got that one. Yang Rodriguez says the use of practical sets makes this show amazing.
It is a beautiful combination of practical and visual and digital, right?
You have to have both.
This is a show that has learned to go and understands practical effects are not better. And, oh, look at that. That this show has learned that practical effects are not better and digital effects are not better. They each have their place when used right. And this show has done a fantastic job of knowing when to walk, when does a scene call for and a shot call for a practical effect to get its most effectiveness, and when does it call for a digital effect to make it most effective? And they've done both with great precision.
So good.
All right, what's next?
Jacob Philo sends in a super chat.
Just to be supportive. And guys, that'll do it for this installment of The Last of Us, episode 5, open spoiler discussion. Thank you guys so much for coming along with us and talking about the show with us. Big special thank you to you guys who sent in those super chats. Number one, because you gave us great, fun, interesting perspectives on this episode of The Last of Us, but also you supported our channel as you did it. So thank you guys so much for that support. Don't forget, guys, we will be back again on Monday for the next installment of The Last of Us Aftershow. Going to be talking about episode 6. It is now back to its regular release date on Sunday, so we'll be back on Monday for that. Hope you guys can join us. And hey, while you're here watching this or listening to this podcast, don't forget to come on by and join us for our daily 2-hour live show talking about all the things we love about movies and movie news, TV and streaming, the John Campea Show, every weekday at 10:30 a.m. Los Angeles time. We hope you guys will come by and join us for that. So, for myself, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, we've had Taylor Gonzalez running the show back there. My name's John Campea. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. And until next time, bye-bye.